So it seems like Grinding Gear Games has just struck a nerve with a lot of people on the web right now. The recent patch that happened a couple hours ago, it seems like a lot of people are upset about this. They are posting everywhere on the media with Reddit, Twitter, and the forum posts of PoE's website, and they're taking their, approaches very, very vividly when it comes to how they feel about these changes in these, patch notes. And basically, let me give you the premise of what's going on before we, push any further. They made changes to how trigger gems react with cast on freeze and cast on shock builds, where it's no longer instantaneously a proc that happens where you can just have a comment or a shock like ability happen very fast, very successively with, no drawback. And with a much more requirement of energy to cast these abilities even when the proc happens, right? And the delay, instead of like the milliseconds that it was happening in, of just, constant damage on the field and people are clearing maps very efficiently, have now been turned into actual 10 to 20 plus seconds of waiting for a proc or a mob at a certain, mob count to actually get the proc to actually happen. So people feel like their, resources and their time in their trees have been wasted after countless hours of playing the game since its, early access just came out, right? So let's read these posts, let's go over it, and let's talk about this a little bit more. I'll give you my opinions from there. It looks like this one user here said, if you want to make the Cast on X builds, I'm fine. If you want to just nuke them, is what he's saying. But I'm level 57, my sources is essentially bricked. You need to let people free re-inspect the entire tree. My resources on my sources are mostly depleted, and I've been dumping everything into upgrades. I have about 40k gold on me and basically no mats. All my gear, clearly not the best, is set up for my build. I mean, come on, man. Respect people's time. At least give us the option to do a complete passive tree reset for free. It is early access after all. I do not have the willpower to slog through another tune in the campaign, nor do I want to farm a level 55 zone for hours on end to get enough gold to respect my entire tree. My will to play has just been destroyed. Now, let's talk about this a little bit further. I do think it does suck when a person is like having fun with a build and they are just, enjoying their time within the game and figuring out what actually works for them, and that's how they like playing the game, and then they feel like the rug has just been pulled underneath them. That sucks. Let's be honest here. Like, that's not a good feeling. That feels like, a cheap shot that just happened to you, and your fun is basically ruined because people wanted to either, report this and say that this build was too strong, or the company themselves just didn't like the way the build was heading in the direction they wanted it to be. But you were still having fun with the build, and you thought it was enjoyable, since the company didn't even say that they wanted people to express themselves, to do whatever build that they wanted to do and find the upgrades that worked and just have fun with it. And the game is in early access after all, so I can understand the concept of saying, let the boys and girls just have fun, do whatever the hell you want, and go crazy. This is not the official launch, and many changes are subject to come, in the future. However, though, I will understand, or I do understand, the, sticking to your guns mentality of Grinding Gear Games and saying, hey, listen, this is what we want to do for our game. This is what we feel like is right. It's our game after all, and we're pushing better and further changes throughout the next days to come, throughout the weeks and months to come, and eventually into, the year and change in the future of the game overall. And this is how we want to do our thing. And people might not like it. People will. It doesn't affect us. We're going to still push forward as a company and make several changes to make the best possible version of this game better than before, and maybe even better than these builds that we've been seeing. So everything that we're seeing right now in early access is not finalized. There are things that are still going to get worked on and change drastically in the future. So I do think people are freaking out, in my opinion, way too much over this. Like, yes, it does suck that this build got, gutted. Let's be honest. I do think, in retrospect, they could offer, better ways of respeccing on the tree. However they decide to do that, whether it's free respecs, more gold that drops overall, or lowering the cost of gold to respec nodes, because it is really pricey to respec nodes, about 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 a node, depending how deep you're in the tree. And they can go about that of handling it their own way. So I have no issues with that, but I do think people are freaking out a little bit too much. And to be honest here, let's keep it frank and keep it real, right? If you are level 57 or level 60 or whatever level you are, and the game is just came out only a couple days ago, you are part of the minority of players that are playing the game at a high level off the rip. I repeat, You are part of the minority of players that are playing at a high level of elite so-called players, we'll say, right? And you are really good at the game. There's nothing wrong with that. You play really exceptionally well. You're figuring out things that work, and maybe you have 2 or 3 other tunes already. You're going crazy on the game. However, you are not the mass majority. And the mass majority are just playing as they go and figuring out things that work. Maybe they're messing up on their skill tree points or their ascendancy points, but they're learning, right? And I really feel like we cannot allow the will of a couple people get bended because they feel like that their builds and everything that they did in the game are completely ruined, and now they don't want to play the game anymore, and they feel like grinding gear games is messing up severely. We cannot let this affect the decisions of how the company pushes forward and what they want to do for the betterment of their game itself. I feel like at the end of the day, if they want to, stick to their guns, it's their absolute damn right to do so. At least they're making active changes, unlike companies like Blizzard, like Diablo, that waits weeks or months or even a year to do an actual legit change for their game, And I feel like this is something that, in my opinion, is way better, to have rather than to not have, at least if it is considered a mess up in your guys' opinion. In my opinion, I feel like it's not. But if it's considered a mess up, at least they can rectify that mess up because they're always so active on, Twitter. They're always so active on the, the forum posts, and they can, admit to their wrongdoings, or they can just admit to making, changes for the better for the player base. I just feel like people are going a little too crazy about this right now and not realizing that these players that are playing at such a high level right now and going super crazy with the game are just not the mass majority of the players overall. And you cannot bend, the knee to the elite players, the 1%ers, and the rest of the, community has to, follow the same path. People, actually enjoy the fact that the game is slow. They actually enjoy the game that it's not, quick pace, and it is, daunting, and you have to fight bosses with, intention and care, and be thoughtful about your decisions and actions, and be creative as well. They don't like the fact that they have builds where just nuke things, 100 to 0 real fast, real quick. Because if you have something like that, then you come up with a game that's like, Diablo 3 or Diablo 4, and then you're just, fast-paced wiping everything really quick. Or hell, even in Path of Exile 1, at the very, very end game, that's what's going on. So they're taking a very different approach, which is like Diablo 2-esque, and I really like that. I think it's a very different game, and it's not going to cater to a lot of people's likings. And you know what? In a way, I like that. I think it's a very different approach, and I can respect them sticking to their guns once again. Now, another person said, the biggest thing is that they said they wanted people to experiment and respec often, but they make it costly to do so, or gold isn't dropping enough. Now, once again, I just feel like even if they are going to make changes on the skill tree, they definitely can do so within time, sooner than later, who knows when, but they're definitely going to make these changes eventually, where the systems that we see in place now are not the systems that are going to be in place forever. Once again, the game is in early access, so it's going to be quite some time where we go through a wave and roller coaster of different emotions on how we feel about, the game changing for the better or changing for the worse, or being just mid overall. There could be a lot of different patch notes and changes that make the game, go a different way or sway to a different people's, opinions and feelings. So I think we should just calm down right now. For the most part, it's early access. Like, I know I'm saying that over and over again, but let's just chill the fuck out. Let's just chill out. But I respect his opinion, because at the end of the day, I do understand what he's saying, and they do, they admitted this themselves, grinding gear games, that they want to have people, just experiment and go crazy. And I do think that should be the premise of the early access, overall. And also when the official launch comes out, to have the ability to experiment as much as we want and have fun with the game. So I can understand where he's coming from. Another user even said the same thing, where, he was talking to the original poster, and he says, I promise you I feel the same, and I don't want to respec now because watch them make it free and then I spend all my gold. I mean, here's the thing. That's just the way it is. And I know that sounds like, so cliche and cookie cuttered, and it's like not the answer you probably want to hear. But at the end of the day, you decided to get within the supporter pack. You decided to be a part of this. You decided to see what the game was going to be like at the bare bones before it even becomes a full-fledged, complete game, full balance, proper changes. Everyone is loving and digging their classes, and every system in place just feels right and feels perfect. So I understand that you don't want to, buy into the fear right now, because you feel like that it is, concerning that a possible change will come and you feel like your time is going to be wasted. That's totally granted. You have every right to feel like that way. But I feel like at the same time, you just have to go with the flow, man. You have to go with what the game is right now. This is what the current state of the game is. If you like it, you play it. If you don't like it, don't play it. It's as simple as that. Another user even said, while I generally like Path of Exile, respecting people's time was never a feature of the game. In fact, a lot of the game seems to be deliberately made to make you waste your time. Now with PoE 2 being much slower, it will undoubtedly make some of those design decisions stand out even more. So I kind of like this user's response, because he's basically getting at that the decisions and philosophies that Grinding Gear Games is proposing to the player base eventually will be revealed either as a really good decision or a really exploitative decision, and how it just didn't really stand to make the mark on the player base, and it could have been, cleaned up a little bit more and sharpened around the edges. And I get what he's getting at. I see the concept of what he's saying in between the lines. I do think we will see in the future, in the next couple months, on how Grinding Gear Games handles themselves, on a level of, respecting the player base's time, fixing the systems to really make things better in place to have, a better interaction with the game itself. For example, like, making sure that mobs don't just overwhelm you and you can't roll through anything and you feel like you're just extremely claustrophobic, or the honor system, which I feel like is kind of not that good in my personal opinion. I don't like the honor system in the trials. I feel like there can be a better way to implement some type of challenge but make it fun, rather than just doing this honored style system. There could be other ways to implement that a little bit better for sure, and other things in the game that currently need some reworking as well, right? Like the map sizes being way too big, and the typical things that people are talking about that are not super negatives. So we'll see what happens, right? Let's give it some time, and then we'll see what Triple G does from there. Just one more user basically saying, the early access tree respec should just be free right off the rip. And I'm going to be honest with you, I actually agree with this. I think just to test the build and, see where the current state of, the game is at, I think allowing players to just do what they want during early access only is fine. Because then you collect a document load of data from your Excel sheets or whatever program or software you're using, and then when the official game comes out, you release a wave of changes for people to see, wow, this company is really making some serious impacts, But if they like to do it every week instead, and that's just their model, and they like to just be super active with the community, then I can't hate on that as well. Maybe they will make the tree respecs different from just being free. Maybe they will lower the cost. They will find some type of method or way to implement a new strategy for players to feel like their time is now being more respected when it comes to the freedom of expression on the nodes that they get to go in certain routes with, whether what class they're playing, and they can try different alternatives with different builds on their time and their frame, right? And I feel like that is something that they're eventually working towards, and this can happen relatively sooner than we think. So whether they do early access tree being freely respecs whenever willy-nilly, it's up to them. But even if they don't do that, I'm not upset either way, because I'm just playing the game and having fun and adjusting and adapting as is. I think that's one thing that's very important, is that players need to learn how to adjust and adapt when the meta and things shift and change. And yes, we can be upset about some things. It happens. But listen, boo-hoo. It is what it is. We move on, we grow, and things will figure itself out throughout the weeks and changes throughout the months, and we'll forget about these old new stuff. So let's move from there. And yeah, a lot of people, even on Twitter, are, basically writing their opinions. I mean, even Elon Musk is actually, he's happy about the impressions and the, the written patch notes are going off. So Elon Musk is grinding on the game as well. So much love to the amigo. However, though, at the end of the day, Yeah, a lot of people are upset here on Twitter. They're saying the same things that, basically a lot of people are already arguing for on, the Reddit post. Even things going on the official patch notes themselves on the, on the websites for the forum posts. People are, talking about their stuff from there as well. And they feel like, these changes are just not justified for them. Right now, the game, in my opinion, it's not perfect. There are, things that are going to make people upset, and there are going to be decisions that be made that they consider stealth changes. That's going to happen again. I truthfully think this is not the first time this is not going to happen. And maybe they address that. Maybe they say on their post that, hey, listen, we messed up. We didn't mean to, do this change without, addressing players in a way where they feel like unheard. But I think at the end of the day, Grinding Gear Games does not really care whether people are upset about the changes they are making. I feel like they have a roadmap ahead of them, that they know what they're doing. They're collecting the data, they see what's going on, and they feel like a lot of better things are yet to come, and the future is mighty bright. So that's just my opinion. What do you guys think from all of this, of what's going on? Do you feel like the changes were just straight up bullshit, let's be honest? Or do you feel like these changes are justified, and at the end of the day, it is early access, right? So we're all going through this shit together. So we'll adapt and survive and thrive. So much love to you. Keep on keeping on. Lock it in. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Where's the cast on Poland Spring? There ain't no cast of water. About to shove it down my throat. Settle down.